Welcome back, subscribers, and thank you for coming back. And new listeners, thank you as well. I hope you guys are having a fabulous day, night, evening, whatever time of the day it is. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm bringing this material to you, and I'm thinking about what's going on and what's taking place in Mississippi now. Even with all the history, investigations that have been undisclosed, and dark deeds in the past, politicians trying to drag it back to, and do the things that their disgraceful forefathers have done. I'm trying to figure out what kind of black magic is on people who, even though they see what's going on, what took place in the past that is happening today, what kind of hoodoo voodoo was put on you to still keep denying that there is no racism and that there is no systemic racism? It's truly baffling. What is it that they don't see? Or is it so traumatic, so horrific that you made yourself not see what's in your face? And you denying it doesn't change it. I'm gonna keep talking about climate change. There's no such thing as climate change. You want me to tell you what's changing the climate? Is your wickedness. Even the earth is crying out, disturbed and disgusted by all the wickedness that's covering the land. Let's get on with this. How many have heard about the Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission, also known as MSSC? Actually, I didn't. I hadn't heard about it until I stumbled across this article. I'm sure people who live in Mississippi heard about this. To those who haven't, the Mississippi State Sovereign Commission was a state agency in Mississippi that was active from 1956 to 1977. And they were tasked with fighting desegregation and controlling civil rights activism. It was overseen by the then governor of Mississippi. The stated objection of the commission was to protect the sovereignty of the state of Mississippi and her sister states from the encroachment thereon by the federal government. It coordinated activities to portray the state and racial segregation in a more positive light. Serving governors and lieutenant governors of Mississippi were ex officio members of the commission. And what's so crazy, though, is even though it was an actual governor, a politician that started this racist group to interfere with the rights that citizens had to protect other citizens from racism. Supposedly, that's what brought about the civil rights, but I heard other things about that, but that'll be a later date. I'll discuss that. But anyway, groups of citizens got together to protect one another from the violence of racism, and you had an actual sitting governor who worked against them. People today will hear this and be like, there's still no racism. That was back in, it was just in 1957. So you can't say, that was back in 1800s. That was so long ago. Let me ask you a question. So you think that all of the things, the racist, vile things your ancestors did just suddenly stopped? Once we got out of the 1800s, it just suddenly stopped. It just stayed behind in the 1800s and the early 1900s. It just stayed behind. Oh, actually, it stopped in the 1960s. Racism just stopped completely in the 1960s, right? So what happened in those years and up until 1960, Martin Luther King being murdered? What happened to just make racism just suddenly stop? Like, boom, snap of a finger, it just stopped. Let's continue. The agency was given unusual authority to investigate citizens of the state, issue subpoenas, and even exercise police powers, although it was not attached to any law enforcement agency. It investigated the work and credit histories and even personal relations of persons it investigated. It collaborated with local white officials, a government, police, and business to pressure African Americans to give up activism, especially by economic pressures such as causing them to be fired, evicted from rental housing, or to have their businesses boycotted.
And you gonna tell me that's still not happening today?
Let's continue.
After these people, it's so denial is so strong. A house can fall on top of someone, and they'll still be like, "I'm okay. Nothing happened. Nothing fell out of the sky on top of me."
Let's go on. After James P. Coleman won Mississippi's gubernatorial election in 1955,
which was just around the corner,
he proposed to the Legal Educational Advisory Committee the creation of a permanent authority for maintenance of racial segregation with a full staff and funds for its operations to come out of tax money.
Did you hear me? This racist group that he started was funded by, or he wanted it to be funded by tax money that was taken from black families, Latino families, Asian families. They took money from the money that you earned from your job that was snatched out from your paycheck from the IRS. They took it out of your bank, out of your check before you even got your check, and used it, and he wanted to use it to fund this racist group he started. You see what I'm talking about? And that's supposed to be against the law. You're not supposed to use tax dollars to fund racist activities. See how the law it gets mushed around certain groups?
After Coleman took office, the Mississippi House of Representatives proposed House Bill 880, which would create a state sovereignty commission. While most legislators and the local media were supportive of the bill, some representatives were skeptical of its power to give funds to private entities, fearing that the body would essentially become a partner of citizens' councils, civic groups organized to block desegregation. Duh. The House passed the bill over these legislators' objections, though the Mississippi State Senate added an amendment to the measure authorizing the Mississippi State Auditor to review the commission's expenditures.
Oh, wow. That was just going to stop them from using the funds for racist means? The little watchdog, how did that work out?
The amended bill was then passed by the House with 107 votes in support and 33 absentees. Coleman signed it into law on March 30th, 1956.
You see how quickly they can get laws passed? Just even if they're illegal. Not all laws are good. This man passed that law real quick. When it's working against us, people who look like me, they'll pass that law over in seconds. Bob, what? You got it done? Okay, put the last word in together and pass it. Come on, get it done.
According to Associated Press, reporters converged from all over the country last year for a chance to examine boxes of reports and yellowed newspaper clippings collected by the once feared Sovereign Commission. But their enthusiasm quickly fizzled with the realization someone had gotten there first, the agency's censors. Speculation had risen that the files might contain secrets of Ku Klux Klan killings or names of civil rights figures thought to have been on the commission's payroll, said to the AP. While some documents raised eyebrows, in 1964, the watchdog agency dispatched one of its spies to Mississippi to sketch a map of the muddy site where the bodies of 3 murdered civil rights workers were found. There were no major revelations. The AP said that the commission also kept an eye on celebrities and entertainers, including Elvis Presley, B.B. King, James Brown, the Rolling Stones, Sammy Davis Jr., and Harry Belafonte.
Did you know, or should I say, who didn't know? Did you know that Culver City, California was also a sundown town? Harry Culver first attempted to establish Culver City in 1913. It was officially incorporated on September the 20th, 1917, and named after its founder. The city was explicitly founded as a whites-only sundown town, as were most of the suburbs and towns outside of downtown and Central Ave districts of Los Angeles. Culver ran ads promoting this model little white city, while his close associate, Guy M. Rush, promoted lot sales restricted to Caucasian race. From 1890 and 1960, approximately 10,000 sundown towns sustained the U.S. map. Some of these towns were very open about their policies, posting whites-only after dark signs in public spaces. In Edmond, Oklahoma, a postcard read, "A good place to live, no Negroes." And Mena, Arkansas advertised itself by saying, "Cool summers, mild winters, no blizzards, and no Negroes."
This is said by someone who was in association with the Sovereignty Commission or heard about it. But he said if the Sovereignty Commission wanted that Negro out of the community and out of the state, they would take care of the situation. Mr. Van Landingham quoted Mr. Connor as saying, and when asked what he meant by that, Mr. Connor stated that Kennard's car could be hit by a train, or he could have had some accident on a highway and nobody would ever know the difference. After a 21-year-old court fight, the state of Mississippi today unsealed more than 124,000 pages of secret files from a state agency that used spy tactics, intimidation, false imprisonment, jury tampering, and other illegal methods to thwart the activities of civil rights workers during the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s. Like an eerie journey into a shadowy past, the files of the agency, the Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission, provided a profoundly unsettling reminder of the state's determination to maintain Jim Crow segregation, as reporters and individuals named in the commission's files began to review the computerized records.
Like I said, what's so crazy is even when this is right in front of people's faces, it's still, super denial.
While some of the commission's methods have been known for years,
especially by black folks, like we see it coming and we yell it from the rooftop. Some of us and y'all be.
Let's continue. Full files released today demonstrated the scope of its work. Investigators made note of the skin color, associations, religious beliefs, and sexual proclivities of civil rights workers they tracked. They jotted down the license plate numbers of cars parked at civil rights meetings and peeked into bank accounts. In some cases, the potential for using violence against civil rights workers is discussed in the commission's memorandums. Although none of the documents reviewed to date show a direct state hand in the numerous deaths of the rights advocates in Mississippi in those years, they clearly reflect the mindset of the state's white supremacists to maintain segregation at all costs.
And I am one of those people that believe that black folks should have stayed segregated. And here's why. Because we always found a way. I don't know how many of you guys know, but back after black folks were released from bondage, they started a Freedmen's Bureau. One of those bureaus, I don't know if it was the Freedmen's Bureau or one of those bureaus that was erected at the time. Black people used it to save their money. Whatever money they made, they put it in these accounts. And they had amassed over $1 million and something, even at that time, after being released from bondage, right? It was stolen from them. The time after slavery, how much was $1 million at that time? $1 million was a whole lot of money for black people to make at that time after being released, literally after being released from bondage. So a lot of black people was like, we fought for integration because, we didn't have anything. Our schools didn't have anything. We didn't have equipment. We didn't do this. Okay, well, how did that work out for you? Even when you fought for integration and you got it, how did the schools turn out? Did you guys start getting more money? Did you guys get better equipment? I mean, it seemed like it did. All it did was give them a better opportunity to keep their eyes on you and then take your money. When segregation was there, you couldn't go to certain stores and you couldn't do this. And yes, it was against the law. Yes, it is. All this is against the law because every man has a right, every man, woman, and child has a right to live in freedom. So yes, segregation, it was crimes against humanity, but you still had the opportunity to build your own and finance your own. If you could earn millions of dollars or $1 million after literally being free from slavery, imagine what you could have done if you stayed segregated and put your own people in political positions. They couldn't keep fighting you forever. Put your own people in political positions, build your own towns and communities, stockpile your communities with weapons like they do. When you integrated, all you did was give them the opportunity to take your money and still treat you like crap. That's all you did. It didn't make it better for you. Why are you still in poverty? Why are you still living in the ghetto and slums that they built to keep you in there while they went to build magazine cover landscapes and community?
Let's continue. In one 1959 memorandum, for example, Zach J. Van Landingham, a commission investigator, tells of a conversation he had with a Hattiesburg lawyer, Dudley Connor, about Clyde Kennard, a black man who tried to desegregate Mississippi Southern College in Hattiesburg in the late 1950s.
If the Sovereignty Commission wanted that Negro out of the community and out of the state, they would take care of the situation.
Mr. Van Landingham quoted to Mr. Connor as saying, and when asked what he meant by that, Mr. Connor stated that Kennard's car could be hit by a train or he could have some accident on the highway and nobody would ever know the difference.
So you guys still don't believe that these accidents and things of that nature that just suddenly happen to certain people is still an accident? Y'all need to stop calling everything a conspiracy theory.
Let's continue. In another memo, this one written by Mr. Van Landingham to Governor J.P. Coleman in 1959, the investigator related a conversation he had with John Ritter, a campus police officer. Ritter had several weeks ago told me that when Kennard was attempting to enter Mississippi Southern College in December 1958, that he had been approached by individuals with possible plans to prevent Kennard's going through with his attempt. He wrote, one of the plans was to put dynamite to the starter of Kennard's Mercury. Another plan was to have some liquor planted in Kennard's car and then he would be arrested. On September 15, 1959, Kennard was in fact arrested on charges of illegal possession of whiskey after police officers claimed to have found 5 half pints of whiskey and other liquor under the front seat of his car. His problem did not end. He was sentenced to prison after his arrest for possession of 5 bags of stolen chicken feed. He died a short time later of cancer.
So this man had chicken feed and liquor in his car, knowing that, he was doing something that a lot of people didn't want to happen. So he just was driving around with all this open liquor. You know what? They didn't say open liquor, I'm mad. He was just driving around with all this liquor in his car. Some things, that's why we say the court is filled with systemic racism, because if there was a judge that was sitting on that bench that had a conscience, heard that so-called evidence presented against Mr. Kennard, they would have been like, this is not. First of all, if you was a judge with a conscience, you would have been like, in this day and age, this man gonna be riding around with all that with liquor in his car and chicken feed, knowing that these cops pull you over at the blink of an eye when you ain't white. Why would he drive around with this? That's what people who don't have wicked hearts would have thought about. But that's why we say this court system is a setup and it's systemic racism. He got set up by that evil commission. Then the police was involved to pull him over. And then the court sent him to jail. But you got some people that still say, there's no racism.
Let's continue. Kennard died a short time later of cancer. The release of the Sovereignty Commission files here comes as the South is making fresh efforts to disinter the history of some of its most tortured times. After years of silence, the family of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is encouraging efforts to discover whether James Earl Ray really was responsible for the 1968 assassination of the civil rights leader. Federal investigators in Birmingham, Alabama have reopened the case of the 1963 bombing of the 16th Avenue Baptist Church, which killed 4 little girls. Last week in Little Rock, Arkansas, former members of the Women's Emergency Committee to Open Our Schools held a news conference to release its membership roster for the first time because members feared for their physical and economic well-being. The group largely worked underground between 1958 to 1963 to reopen schools that had been closed by Governor Fabius to deter court-ordered desegregation. Here in Mississippi, several civil rights advocates who were the subjects of Sovereignty Commission investigations said today that they may use their newly released records to file lawsuits against the state. Prosecutors said that it was also possible that information found in the files could be used to press criminal charges against suspected perpetrators if they are still alive. Certainly, if there's evidence that comes to light regarding any crime that occurred in our jurisdiction, then we'll certainly investigate that. Take a look at it to see whether it's prosecutable, just like we did in the Beckwith case, said Bobby D. Laughter, a Hinds County Assistant District Attorney here in Jackson, where the mayor is black.
I guess that's supposed to make a difference. Hey, we have a black mayor. How many people actually believe that these politicians work on their own accord? Like, they have an agenda, they set it, and they're going to do what they set out to do. You really think that those politicians work on their own accord? Chill, one of those men said that you find a rich politician, you find corruption. A real, authentic politician who's really for the people, yeah, they're not going to be rich. They're not going to be living in $1 million homes while the people, their constituents, going to free food lines all week. Wherever a church or a community little group is giving away free food, a block-long line of people with their grocery bags ready to take that free food. Meanwhile, the people that represent their communities is living in $1 million houses and it's not even living in the community that they represent. Did you know that politicians are supposed to live in the communities that they represent?
In 1994, Mr. DeLaughter won conviction of Byron D. LaBeckwith for the 1963 assassination of the NAACP leader Medgar Evers after learning that the Sovereignty Commission had aided Mr. Beckwith's defense in 2 previous trials in which the juries deadlocked. A new trial was ordered after Jerry Mitchell, a reporter for the Clarion Ledger, Jackson's daily newspaper, used information leaked from Sovereignty Commission files to write in 1989 that the commission had secretly aided in Mr. Beck's defense by helping to screen potential jurors to weed out Jews and civil rights sympathizers. The unsealing of the Sovereignty Commission files ended a 2-decade legal battle that began in 1977 when the state legislature voted the commission out of existence but sealed its records for 50 years.
Okay, we gonna stop this group, but we gonna cover up your nasty, disgusting, evil deeds for 50 years. That way, some of y'all didn't die off and you won't have to be still paying for the crimes you did. See, that's what us white folks do. We help one another, even when we're disgustingly wrong.
Let's continue. The American Civil Liberties Union and several individuals filed suit to keep the records open, and in 1989, Judge William H. Barber of Federal District Court here ordered that they be released. It took 9 more years to satisfy appeals and establish a process to allow subjects of the commission's investigations to exert their rights to keep their own files private. Some of the commission files have been reportedly destroyed, and about 7,700 pages out of the total of 132,000 pages of files remain secret because 42 people claim privacy rights, said Kate Blount, a spokeswoman for the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, which has maintained and indexed the files. The commission, which was created in 1956 with a $250,000 budget, formally existed until 1977. It was the model for similar agencies that fought desegregation in other states. The opening of the Sovereignty Commission files has generated a debate here between those who believe that the ugliness of the past should remain buried and those who believe that only a full airing can bring healing. Some of the civil rights advocates have fought the opening of the files because they believe their release could hurt the subjects of the Sovereignty Commission investigations once again by releasing unsavory and possibly untrue details about their personal lives. It will probably bring forth some memories of a bad time in the state, which we all acknowledge was a bad time now, said former Mississippi Governor William F. Winter, a member of the President's Advisory Board on Race. I hope it'll be the basis for understanding that we can't ever lapse back into the kind of intolerance we once had in this state.
And again, this article, I think, was written in 1999. I have to go back in my notes to see what date, but he said he didn't want the state to lapse back, and look what's going on today.
Let's continue. One of the few living members of the Sovereignty Commission, Betty Long, 69, said today that she too was pleased that the files had been opened. I want facts to be known instead of innuendo and rumors, she said, adding that she did not believe that the commission had been involved in murder or other acts of violence. At the time, everyone in the state was gung-ho to keep things segregated, and that was tied in with the idea of the communists taking over. It's something I wish had never happened. Let's talk about Glendale, California, which was a sundown town. Some may say still is. Glendale city leaders presented a report during a September board meeting about Glendale's history as a sundown town. In the report, they found hate crimes reported in newspapers from the 1900s through the 1990s. The Ku Klux Klan and American Nazi Party were active in the city for decades, and non-whites were prohibited from being buried in Glendale's Forest Lawn Memorial Park until the 1960s. The report also found the city's black population has been intentionally kept low because of homeowner pleas to only sell to white people. In 1940, Glendale was cited by the California Real Estate Association for being worthy of singular praise in its utilization of measures to keep it a 100% Caucasian race community.
You see why California was one of the first states to start really supposedly seriously talking about reparations? California has a whole lot of filth hidden, and some not hidden, but they just make California look beautiful with Hollywood.
Let's continue. For those who have waited for decades to see what information the state had collected about them, their family members, and their friends, the day provided a long-awaited moment of revelation and relief. 21 years is a long time to wait to see what is in here, said Ellie J. Dahmer, clutching a packet containing a file on her husband, Werner Dahmer, who was shot to death in 1966 while fending off a Ku Klux Klan firebomb attack on his house in Hattiesburg. Ms. Dahmer, who spoke outside the archives building in front of the memorial to the Confederate dead, said she hoped that her husband's file may help prosecutors retry Sam Bowers, an imperial wizard of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, who was acquitted in 1968 of ordering the firebombing. That trial for arson ended when the jury deadlocked 11-1. A second trial for murder also ended with a deadlocked jury, this time 10-2. The Clarion Ledger published an article by Mr. Mitchell last week saying that notes taken from FBI files suggest that Klan members had contacted juries in the first case. When it came up 11-1 one time and then 10-2 the next time, we thought something might be wrong, but we didn't have any way of proving it, Ms. Dahmer said. It shows what kind of state we lived in, what kind of environment there was, what they really thought about black people. A review of Mr. Dahmer's file today revealed no evidence of Sovereignty Commission involvement in Mr. Bowers' trial. The commission files also show that the commission's director, Earl Johnston Jr., ordered one of his investigators, A.L. Hopkins, to look into the facts surrounding the 1964 murder of the 3 civil rights workers, Andre Goodman, Michael Swermer, and James Chaney. Mr. Hopkins reported first that some of the local law enforcement officers on the case had assured him that they were working hard to solve it, but by his last report, he was noting that some of the officers had themselves been arrested and charged in the deaths and were headed for trial. Here's the thing. What's that saying? Quacks like a duck and walk like a duck. It's a duck. I really can't see how people are in this country seeing the things that is taking place now in the 21st century and not resemble what took place in the recent past. The 1900s wasn't that long ago. 1957, 1960 wasn't that long ago. And so what took place in the 1800s and 1700s still took place in the 1960s, still taking place in the 2023. And yet I said 2023s. It's taking place now. So you got to realize that a lot of people are playing the game. It's called denial. Just keep denying until you can't deny. But pretty soon all you're doing is painting yourself into a corner. You can't keep denying it. And you can't keep lying. What's done in the dark comes out to the light all the time. And like I've said many times, and I'm going to keep saying, there are some dark, disturbing things that this country has intentionally done to those called Black Americans that they want to stay hidden forever. But it's not. It's not. Matter of fact, I'm working on... remember when I said that it was one of the, I think the Kerner report. Not too many people checked out that video. I don't understand why y'all don't want to hear it. You know, a lot of people want, give me facts. I want facts. But you have a whole report that was conducted by predominantly white people pointing out that racism is, and the issues that black people have in this country is in fact created by racism, which is perpetuated by white people. You have a factual report that was done and given to the president at the time that the report was done. When it comes to the facts, you really don't want to know the facts, do you? When you have people in these agencies that have been put in place to supposedly control the population, right? They don't want to say that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. Controlling the population and oppressing other groups in this population. When you have them intentionally breaking the law, what are you supposed to do? When the people that's supposed to uphold the law are breaking the law willfully and always seem to have a particular group in their crosshairs when they're breaking the law. Nobody got anything to say about that? Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting this channel in whatever way you have supported it, whether you subscribe, whether you share the videos, whether you comment. I appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Have a good day.